On the very day I returned home, my would-be mother-in-law slapped a check across my face. $5 million. Walk away from my son. I've dealt with gold diggers before, who think a pregnancy can lock a man down. You're not nearly as smart as you believe. Before I could say a word, a girl in a white dress shrank behind her, clutching her sleeve with trembling fingers, her eyes brimming with tears. Mrs. Sterling, please don't do this. What if Adrian finds out? And if he truly cares about her, I'm willing to step aside. I let out a soft laugh. So that was the story she had written for me. A calculating woman trying to steal her man. I bent down, picked up the check, and tucked it neatly into the deep neckline of Lily Bennett's dress. Here. A tip. Your performance wasn't bad. Then I pulled out my black card and flicked it onto the table. Ma'am, I'll offer you 10 million. Keep your son on a leash, and tell him to stop bothering me. I find him revolting. I paused, then added lightly. Oh, and one more thing. I gestured toward the delicate little flower she was guarding so carefully. The girl you're protecting? My father brought her home last year. His illegitimate daughter. If anyone thinks they're joining my family, they should probably ask the Bennetts for permission first. The moment I finished speaking, Victoria Sterling's expression tightened. Only briefly. She had spent decades navigating the business world. Composure was second nature to her. Within a second, her usual air of superiority slipped back into place. Her gaze flicked to the black card on the table, and she gave a cold, dismissive laugh. 10 million? At least try to make it sound believable. You think flashing some random card makes you an heiress? They hand those things out like flyers. That trick might fool someone else, but not me. Behind her, my dear half-sister Lily Bennett burst into tears as if on cue. She clung to Victoria's arm, her voice trembling. Please don't blame her, Mrs. Sterling. She must have had a hard time abroad. Maybe that's why she cares so much about appearances, and says things she can't prove. This is all my fault. If I hadn't come back, Adrian wouldn't have noticed me, and Claire wouldn't hate me so much. So fragile. So selfless. So perfectly rehearsed. In just a few sentences, she turned me into a bitter, unstable woman who had failed overseas, while quietly emphasizing her closeness to Adrian. According to her version of events, I was nothing more than a jealous ex-girlfriend lashing out. And Victoria bought every word. She patted Lily's hand, her expression softening before turning ice cold again as she looked at me. Did you hear that? Even after everything you've done, Lily is still defending you. Compared to someone like her, you're not even in the same league. Her voice hardened further. I don't care what you are to your father. Illegitimate daughter, stray, whatever label you prefer. It has nothing to do with the Sterling family. But let me be very clear. Adrian is my only son. We do not welcome shameless liars into this family. Take the 5 million and disappear. I nearly laughed at the performance unfolding in front of me. I was about to respond when the cafe door was shoved open. A familiar figure strode in. Adrian. He walked straight over, first glancing at Lily, still crying, then at his mother's furious expression. Only after that did he look at me, his brows drawn tight. Claire Bennett, have you caused enough trouble? That accusation was even more absurd than the check. Before I could respond, Lily had already slipped out of Victoria's arms and hurried to Adrian, tears streaming down her face. Adrian, please don't blame Claire, she didn't mean it. She just misunderstood us. Adrian placed his hands gently on her shoulders, his voice instantly softening. You're too kind, Lily. You don't need to explain anything for her. Once he had comforted her, he turned back to me. The warmth in his expression vanished, replaced by impatience. My mother isn't well, and Lily has always been delicate. If you're upset, take it out on me. Why bring this here and make things harder for them? I crossed my arms and leaned back against the sofa, meeting his gaze without a hint of warmth. Adrian, what exactly did you see just now? Your mother has been waving a check in my face, telling me to disappear, while your precious Lily stood beside her adding fuel to the fire. And the moment you walk in, you blame me without asking a single question. Is this the trust you promised me when you were overseas? His expression stiffened. For once, he had no immediate reply. Victoria stepped forward at once, placing herself in front of him. And you have the nerve to bring that up? If you hadn't used those cheap tricks to seduce my son overseas, he never would have lost his senses over you. I came today to clean up this mess. Apologize to me and Lily. Right now. Or don't blame me for what happens next. Apologize. I let out a short laugh. You want me to apologize to a woman who tried to buy me off? And to an illegitimate daughter who stole my boyfriend? You. Victoria raised her hand. Mom. Adrian cut in quickly, stopping her. He took a breath, then looked at me with something close to pleading. Claire, I'm asking you. Just apologize and let this go, okay? My mom was upset. She didn't mean everything she said. And Lily, she's still young. She doesn't understand things fully. Don't hold it against her. I stared at him. In that moment, everything became painfully clear. The man in front of me wasn't just weak. He was cowardly. Whatever warmth I had left for him went cold. I stood up slowly, picked up the black card, and walked over. Before he could react, I raised my hand and struck his face with it. Adrian Sterling, you, your mother, and your Lily truly are a perfect match. Consider that your wake-up call. We're done. That was enough to push Victoria past her limit. The moment she saw the mark on his face, she lunged forward, grabbing my handbag and shouting at the top of her voice. My brooch. My sapphire brooch is gone. You stole it. The accusation exploded through the cafe. Every head turned. Victoria immediately faced the crowd, her voice breaking into dramatic sobs. Everyone look at her. She couldn't trap my son, so now she's stealing from me. That brooch was an anniversary gift from my husband. It's worth over $2 million. Lily covered her mouth, eyes wide, the picture of shock, though the satisfaction beneath it wasn't entirely hidden. Claire, how could you? Mrs. Sterling cherished that brooch. Were things really that bad for you overseas? You could have told me. I would have helped you. Why would you do something like this? Every word was carefully placed, painting me as a desperate woman driven to theft. Adrian looked at me, disappointment replacing anger. Claire Bennett, I really misjudged you. I thought you were just difficult. I didn't think you would steal. Where is my mother's brooch? Give it back. I looked at the three of them, perfectly in sync, twisting truth and lies without missing a beat. The last trace of patience I had left disappeared. Are you certain I took it? I asked evenly. If not you, then who? Victoria snapped, gripping my bag tighter. You're the only suspicious one here. The commotion quickly drew mall security, along with a middle-aged man in a suit wearing a manager's badge. The moment Victoria saw him, she pointed at me sharply. Mr. Collins, there's a thief in your mall. Detain her immediately. Take her to the VIP lounge. I'll search her myself. Escorted by security, I was invited to the VIP lounge. Victoria settled onto the main sofa like she had already won, calmly sipping the tea her assistant handed her. Lily leaned against Adrian like a frightened bird, stealing occasional glances at me, timid, fragile, and barely hiding her satisfaction. Mr. Collins stood in front of Victoria, practically drenched in sweat, his smile strained with eagerness. Mrs. Sterling, please don't be upset. Grand Arcadia Mall will absolutely give you a satisfactory resolution. Would you like us to call the police? The police? Victoria let out a short, cold laugh and set her teacup down with deliberate calm. Her gaze dragged slowly across my face. That would be far too lenient. A criminal record would only invite gossip, that people saying my son once dated a thief. The Sterling family doesn't tolerate that kind of disgrace. She paused, her expression sharpening. I want her searched. Her bag, and her person. Let everyone see exactly what kind of low-class liar she really is. A body search. So this was where we were headed. Public humiliation, plain and simple. Mr. Collins hesitated. Mrs. Sterling, that would violate store policy. We're not authorized to conduct personal searches. Victoria cut him off without a second thought. Mr. Collins, shall I remind you how much the Sterling family spends here every year? If you choose to protect a thief today, you'll deal with the consequences yourself. That was enough. The last of his hesitation vanished. He turned to me, his tone suddenly stiff and official. Miss, if you want to prove your innocence, I suggest you cooperate. Otherwise, we'll have no choice but to involve the police. I looked around the room. At Victoria's cold arrogance. At Lily Bennett's barely concealed satisfaction. At Adrian Sterling's distant indifference. At Mr. Collins, bending himself into whatever shape power demanded. Fine, I said evenly. I'll cooperate. I stepped up to the coffee table and under everyone's watchful gaze, began emptying my Hermes limited edition bag. Wallet, keys, phone, lipstick, tissues. Each item placed neatly in front of me. Nothing else. Victoria frowned, unwilling to accept defeat. She strode forward, grabbed my bag, and turned it inside out, even running her fingers along every seam. Still nothing. That's impossible. She snapped. Then it must be on her. Her eyes dropped to my jacket. I was wearing a sharply tailored Chanel blazer. Ignoring the security guards at my sides, I met her gaze and Lily's, and let a faint smile curl at my lips. You really want to see? Without breaking eye contact, I slipped my hand into my pocket. The room seemed to fall completely silent. When I withdrew my hand, a sapphire brooch rested in my palm. Deep blue. Luminous. Cold as ice. Ah! Lily gasped before she could stop herself. She quickly covered her mouth, her eyes reddening again. Claire, how could you? Victoria lit up with triumph, her voice rising sharply. You see that? Caught red-handed. I knew it. She's a thief. Mr. Collins exhaled in relief and immediately signaled to security. Two guards stepped forward, positioning themselves on either side of me. The room filled with silent judgment. Adrian stared at me, whatever hesitation he'd had completely gone. He stepped closer, his voice calm, almost detached, like a verdict already decided. Claire Bennett, I gave you a chance. Now that you've been caught, what else do you have to say? Disgust flickered in his eyes. Why would you do this? Because my mother disapproved? Because Lily made you jealous? So you staged this pathetic stunt for revenge. His voice hardened. You've disappointed me. I looked at him. Really looked at him. And then I laughed. Adrian froze, frowning. What's so funny? You're finished, and you still think this is amusing. I'm laughing, I said, the smile fading from my face. Because you're pathetic. I met his gaze calmly. 2 women are playing you from start to finish. And you're still standing here acting like some righteous judge. Do you have any idea how ridiculous you look? What nonsense. Victoria cut in sharply. The evidence is right there, and you're still trying to argue your way out of it? Clearly, you won't stop until you're forced to. Mr. Collins, call the police. Wait. I raised a hand, stopping him just as he reached for his phone. My gaze swept across the room before settling on him. Mr. Collins, you've been managing this mall for 5 years, haven't you? He blinked, caught off guard, but nodded anyway. Yes, just over 5 years. Why? 5 years is a long time. I picked up the brooch and turned it slowly between my fingers, my tone light. Then you should know who the majority shareholder of Grand Arcadia Mall is. His expression shifted. Subtly but unmistakably. Victoria snapped, impatient. Stop stalling. Saying random things won't save you. I ignored her. This brooch, I continued, is an imitation of Cartier's limited edition Heart of the Ocean from last fall. Only 3 were made worldwide. Each one has its own anti-counterfeit marker and a unique microchip code. A bead of sweat slid down Mr. Collins's temple. As the manager of the most exclusive mall in Silverbrook, I'm sure you're far more familiar with luxury authentication than I am. He stared at the brooch. Then at me. Said nothing. Adrian frowned, sensing something was off, but still unwilling to question himself. Claire Bennett, what are you trying to prove? Real or fake doesn't matter. It was found on you. Doesn't matter? I let out a short laugh and dropped the brooch onto the table with a sharp click. Mr. Collins, why don't you explain? The real Heart of the Ocean should have a laser-engraved serial number inside the clasp. And at the base of the gemstone, there's a microchip so small you'd need at least a 20 times magnifier to see it. With every word, his face grew paler. Lily's expression cracked, panic creeping through the carefully maintained innocence. She turned toward Victoria, but even Victoria looked uncertain now. I straightened slowly. The restraint I had been holding back finally slipped. I was no longer the woman they thought they could humiliate. I was a Bennett. I met Mr. Collins's eyes directly. I'm giving you one chance. Use the mall's professional equipment. Authenticate it properly. Then pull the full surveillance footage, from the moment I walked into the cafe until now. Every second. I paused, then delivered the final blow. Oh, and one more thing. My name is Claire Bennett. This mall was a gift from my father on my 20th birthday. I let the silence settle. Then calmly. Mr. Collins, on your boss's own property, do you really think anyone would dare frame her as a thief? The silence in the VIP lounge was thick, almost suffocating. Mr. Collins's hands, which had been reaching for his phone to call the police, froze midair. The color drained from his face so quickly he looked as though he might faint. His eyes darted from the glittering sapphire brooch on the table to the black card Claire had tossed down earlier, and finally to her face. Claire Bennett. The name wasn't just familiar. It was a shadow that hung over every executive meeting, every corporate audit, and every financial report of the Grand Arcadia Mall's parent conglomerate. The Bennett Group owned 70% of the commercial real estate in Silverbrook, and Grand Arcadia was their crown jewel. Rumors had circulated for years that the chairman's reclusive daughter, who had been studying asset management in Europe, would eventually return to take over. But no one expected her to show up like this, sitting in a standard VIP lounge, being accused of petty theft by a mid-tier socialite. And Miss Bennett? Mr. Collins's voice cracked, the professional veneer completely shattering. You are Chairman Arthur Bennett's. Don't let her fool you, Mr. Collins. Victoria Sterling's voice cut through the room, sharp and dripping with disbelief. She let out a harsh, mocking laugh. Claire Bennett? The Bennett family is the wealthiest dynasty in the province. Do you honestly believe the heiress of the Bennett Group would be dressed in off-the-rack clothes, dating a mid-level businessman's son, and living in a rented apartment abroad? She's a fraud using a common last name to scare you. Adrian, too, stepped forward, his expression a mix of embarrassment and annoyance. Claire, stop this. It's one thing to be stubborn, but claiming to be the daughter of the Bennett family? Do you have any idea how ridiculous you sound? I lived with you for 2 years in London. You worked a part-time job at a library. You drove a second-hand sedan. If you were a Bennett, why would you live like that? Claire looked at Adrian, a cold, pitying smile playing on her lips. Because Adrian, unlike you and your mother, I don't need to wear my net worth on my sleeve to feel secure. My father wanted me to understand the value of $1 before I inherited billions. It's called parenting. I suppose that's a foreign concept to the Sterling family. You, Adrian's face flushed red with anger. Mr. Collins, Claire ignored him entirely, her gaze locking onto the trembling manager. Are you going to standing there sweating, or are you going to run my card through your terminal? The black Centurion card in front of you is a customized corporate subcard registered under the Bennett Group's primary treasury. If you swipe it, your system will show the authorization code, BG001. Go ahead. Try it. Mr. Collins didn't need to swipe it. He recognized the matte-finished titanium and the discreet, laser-engraved serial number on the back. It was a card issued only to the immediate family members of the chairman. With shaking hands, Mr. Collins picked up the card and walked to the wall-mounted terminal. He swiped it. A soft chime echoed through the quiet room. On the screen, a prompt appeared in bright red letters. Level 1 access granted. Welcome, Director Bennett. The machine didn't lie. The terminal was directly connected to the mall's secure internet. Mr. Collins's knees buckled. He turned around, his face completely pale, and bowed so low his forehead nearly touched the edge of the coffee table. Miss Bennett, please forgive me. I was blind, I didn't recognize you. I was misled by these people. He pointed a trembling finger at Victoria and Lily, desperate to shift the blame. They claimed you stole the brooch. I was only trying to follow protocol, I swear. Victoria's triumphant smile froze. Her hand, which had been holding her teacup, began to tremble, causing the porcelain to rattle against the saucer. Mr. Collins, what is the meaning of this? You're the manager of this mall. How can you let a cheap trick library clerk frighten you? Shut up, Victoria. Mr. Collins roared, his fear turning into sheer rage. Do you want to ruin me? Do you want to ruin this entire mall? This is Miss Claire Bennett, the sole heiress of the Bennett Group. The very ground you are standing on belongs to her father. Lily Bennett's breath hitched. She shrank back into the shadows of the sofa, her hands clenching into fists so tight her nails bit into her palms. No, this can't be. She had spent the last year clawing her way into the Bennett family as an illegitimate daughter, enduring the cold shoulder of Arthur Bennett and the disdain of the household staff. Also, she could finally taste high society. He had targeted Adrian Sterling because he was wealthy, handsome, and easily manipulated. She wanted to prove that she, Lily, could secure a better match than Claire ever could. But now, the very mall they were standing in, the grand, luxurious Grand Arcadia Mall, belonged to Claire. Mr. Collins, Claire's voice was calm, but it held an icy authority that made everyone in the room hold their breath. Bring up the security footage from the cafe. Let's see how this heart of the ocean brooch found its way into my pocket. Right away, Miss Bennett. Right away. Mr. Collins scrambled to his desk, his fingers flying across the keyboard of his computer. Within seconds, the large, high-definition monitor on the wall flickered to life, displaying the security feed of the cafe from 20 minutes ago. The footage was crystal clear, captured from a 4K multi-angle security camera, directly above their table. On the screen, the scene played out. Victoria slamming the check onto the table, Claire tucking it into Lily's neckline, and Claire throwing her black card. Then the door opened and Adrian walked in. Slow it down. 0.5 speed, Claire commanded. Mr. Collins adjusted the playback speed. The screen showed the moment Adrian stepped between Claire and his mother. During the brief commotion, when Victoria lunged forward to grab Claire's handbag, Lily had stepped forward under the guise of trying to stop them. The camera caught it perfectly. Lily's right hand slid smoothly into her own sleeve, withdrew a small glittering object, and with a practiced subtle flick of her wrist, dropped it directly into the open side pocket of Claire's Chanel blazer while Claire's attention was turned toward Victoria. The footage didn't lie. The framing was calculated, deliberate, and caught in high definition. No, that's not. The camera angle is distorted. Lily cried out, her voice rising in a panic-stricken shriek. She grabbed Adrian's arm, tears streaming down her face. Adrian, you have to believe me. I didn't do it. I was just trying to pull your mother back. I didn't put anything in her pocket. Adrian stared at the screen, his mind blank. He wasn't entirely stupid, he could see the movement clearly. His chest tightened as a cold realization began to wash over him. But Claire wasn't finished. She picked up the sapphire brooch from the table and tossed it to the side. And what about the brooch itself? Victoria, you said this was a genuine heart of the ocean sapphire brooch, worth over $2 million, an anniversary gift from your husband. Claire turned to Mr. Collins. Call Mr. Harrison from the jewelry department. Downstairs. He's the senior gemologist for Cartier's flagship store. Let him authenticate it. I'll have him up here in 2 minutes, Miss Bennett. Mr. Collins practically ran to the door to make the call. Victoria's face turned an ugly mottled red. There's no need for that. Why should we waste time on a thief's stalling tactics? Are you afraid, Mrs. Sterling? Claire asked, leaning back against the sofa. Her posture relaxed and elegant. If the brooch is real, a professional appraisal will only prove your wealth. Unless, of course, the Sterling family's financial situation isn't quite as robust as you've been pretending. Within 2 minutes, Mr. Harrison, an elderly man in an impeccable suit and carrying a professional loupe, hurried into the VIP lounge. He bowed deeply to Claire. Miss Bennett, it is an honor. How can I assist you today? Appraise this brooch, Mr. Harrison, Claire said, gesturing to the glittering piece on the table. Tell me its market value. Mr. Harrison picked up the brooch, adjusted his loupe, and examined it under the light. It took him less than 10 seconds. He let out a soft, dismissive sigh. Miss Bennett, this is a very common synthetic replica. The main stone is low-grade blue glass, and the surrounding accents are cheap cubic zirconia set in silver-plated brass. The clasp is poorly soldered. It's a mass-produced piece, likely purchased online for no more than $200. What did you say? Victoria gasped, her eyes bulging. That's impossible. My husband bought that for me from an auction in Paris. He paid $2.5 million. Then I suggest you audit your husband's bank accounts, Mrs. Sterling, Claire said, her voice dripping with mockery. Or perhaps, audit your own memory. Did he really buy it from Paris? Or did you buy a cheap fake yourself just to set up this little drama today? Before Victoria could find her voice, the heavy double doors of the VIP lounge were pushed open. This time it wasn't a mall employee. A group of men in bespoke dark suits walked in, their expressions grim and professional. Leading them was a tall, imposing man in his late 20s. He wore a charcoal gray Seville Row suit, his features sharp, cold, and striking. He carried an aura of absolute authority that made Adrian's self-proclaimed businessman posture look like a cheap imitation. Julian Bennett, Claire's older brother and the active president of the Bennett Group. Julian, Claire said, her voice softening slightly as she looked at her brother. Julian didn't look at anyone else in the room. He walked straight to Claire, his eyes scanning her from head to toe. Are you hurt? I'm fine, Claire said. Just a minor nuisance. Julian's gaze swept across the room, landing on Mr. Collins, who was practically shaking so hard he could barely stand. Mr. Collins, you allowed my sister to be brought into a security holding room under suspicion of theft. Mr. Bennett, I didn't know. Mr. Collins stammered, his voice filled with terror. I was misled by the Sterling family. They insisted on a search. I tried to follow policy, but you're fired, Julian said, his voice flat, devoid of any emotion. Your termination is effective immediately. The legal department will review your actions today to see if you violated any civil rights or corporate liability laws. Pack your things and leave. Mr. Collins looked as if he had been struck by lightning. He slumped against the wall, his career in Silverbrook completely over. Julian then turned his attention to the Sterling family. Adrian, realizing who the man in front of him was, tried to swallow his pride. He stepped forward, putting on his most professional smile, and extended his hand. Mr. Bennett, I am Adrian Sterling, General Manager of Sterling Logistics. This is all a big misunderstanding. Claire and we've been dating for 2 years in London. We had a small disagreement, and my mother was just protective. Julian didn't even look at Adrian's extended hand. He took a silk handkerchief from his pocket, wiped his fingers as if he had touched something dirty, and handed it to his assistant. Sterling Logistics, Julian said slowly, his voice cold. The company that currently leases 3 of our primary distribution warehouses in the northern sector. Adrian's heart leaped into his throat. Yes, Mr. Bennett. We've been excellent tenants. Not anymore. Julian cut him off. Assistant Zhang, notify the real estate division. Cancel all lease agreements with Sterling Logistics immediately. They have 24 hours to vacate our properties. Yes, Mr. Bennett, the assistant replied, writing it down on a tablet. Victoria Sterling finally found her voice, her panic overcoming her shock. You can't do that. That's a breach of contract. We have a 5-year lease. If you evict us, we will sue the Bennett Group for damages. Julian's legal counsel, a sharp-eyed man in a gray suit, stepped forward. Mrs. Sterling, all Bennett Group commercial leases contain a standard reputation and conduct clause. Any tenant whose principal officers engage in illegal activity, public harassment, or fraud on Bennett Group property is subject to immediate Lease termination without compensation. Your attempt to frame Miss Bennett for theft caught on high-definition security cameras constitutes a direct violation of this clause. We will not only evict you, but we will also sue Sterling Logistics for damage to our mall's reputation. Victoria staggered back, her face turning pale. Sterling Logistics was already struggling due to the recent economic downturn. Losing those 3 distribution warehouses would completely paralyze their supply chain. It was a death sentence for their family business. Adrian. Victoria whispered, her hands shaking. Do something. Adrian looked at Claire, his eyes filled with a desperate, pleading light. Claire, please. You can't do this. We loved each other. I was just confused. Lily told me you were jealous of her. She told me you were trying to ruin her life. I only believed her because you are a coward, Adrian, Claire said, her voice calm and steady. You believed what was convenient for you. You wanted a woman who would stroke your ego, who would play the fragile victim so you could feel like a savior. And now, you can keep her. Claire looked at Lily, who was trying to slip out of the room unnoticed. Leaving so soon, Lily? Claire asked. We haven't even talked about your status in the Bennett family yet. Lily froze at the door. 2 of Julian's security guards stepped in front of her, their massive frames blocking her exit. Claire, please, Lily sobbed, her face pale, the delicate act completely falling apart. I'm your sister. We share the same father. You can't do this to me in front of everyone. Dad wouldn't want this. Our father. Julian's voice was like ice. He took out his phone and pressed a button, putting it on speakerphone. The call connected immediately. A deep, authoritative voice boomed through the VIP lounge. Julian? Did you find Claire? I found her, father, Julian said. She's fine. But your other daughter, Lily, just tried to frame Claire for stealing a $200 fake brooch with the help of the Sterling family. There was a long, heavy silence on the other end of the line. When Arthur Bennett spoke again, the warmth in his voice was completely gone, replaced by a terrifying, quiet fury. Lily Bennett. Lily fell to her knees, her tears genuine now, born of absolute terror. Dad, listen to me. It was a mistake. I didn't mean to. I brought you into my house out of respect for a past mistake, Arthur Bennett said, his voice cold and distant. I gave you a roof over your head, an allowance, and a chance to get a proper education. But I told you, very clearly, the day you walked into that house, Claire is my only daughter. If you ever tried to touch her, or if you ever tried to take what belongs to her, I would throw you out. Dad, please. I'm sorry. I'll apologize to Claire. I'll do anything. Lily pleaded, her hands clutching the air. As of this moment, Arthur Bennett continued, ignoring her cries, you are stripped of the Bennett name. Your allowance is cancelled. The villa in the suburbs is repossessed. You have until tonight to pack your things and leave my property. If I ever see you near Claire or Julian again, I will make sure no company in this country will ever hire you. The line went dead. Lily slumped onto the floor, her eyes blank. Her dream of becoming a high society heiress had vanished in a single afternoon. She had traded her entire future for a cheap, fake sapphire brooch and a weak, cowardly man. Adrian stared at her, disgust rising in his chest. You lied to me about everything. You told me you were the favorite daughter. You told me Claire was just an illegitimate outcast who was jealous of you. And you believed her because you are stupid, Adrian, Claire said, standing up and smoothing down her blazer. You and your mother wanted a wealthy connection so badly that you didn't even bother to verify her claims. You thought you were trading up. How does it feel to realize you've traded a diamond for a piece of glass? Victoria Sterling grabbed Adrian's arm, her voice hysterical. Adrian, we have to apologize. Claire, Miss Bennett, please, we were wrong. We didn't know. We'll pay you back. We'll do whatever you want. Julian stepped in front of Claire, his tall frame completely blocking her from their sight. Get out. Before I have security, throw you out of the mall. Physically. The security guard stepped forward, their expressions grim. Realizing there was no hope, Adrian slowly turned and walked out of the room. His head bowed, his shoulders slumped. Victoria followed him, her face pale, muttering incoherently about bankruptcy and lawsuits. Lily lay on the floor for a moment longer before 2 female security guards picked her up by the arms and dragged her out, her weeping echoing down the corridor. The VIP lounge was quiet once more. Julian turned to Claire, a rare, soft smile appearing on his face. You always did have a dramatic streak, Claire. You could have just called me the moment you landed. And missed the look on Victoria's face when she realized her $2 million brooch was a fake. Claire laughed, her eyes bright with amusement. Besides, I Needed to see what kind of people they really were. It's better to cut the weeds out completely before they take root. Julian nodded, his expression turning serious. Father has been waiting for you. At the estate. He's already prepared the paperwork for you to take over the retail division of the Bennett Group. Grand Arcadia Mall is just the starting point. I know, Claire said, looking out the large glass window of the VIP lounge at the bustling, luxurious mall below. I'm ready. 2 weeks later, the corporate landscape of Silverbrook had shifted dramatically. The Sterling Group's logistics division had declared bankruptcy after losing their primary leases and being blacklisted by every major commercial real estate firm in the city. Their creditors had seized their assets, and Victoria and Adrian were forced to sell their mansion to pay off their debts, moving into a cramped, rented apartment on the outskirts of the city. Lily Bennett had vanished from the high society circles entirely. Stripped of her allowance and her name, she was rumored to be working as a low-level sales clerk in a suburban department store, her dreams of luxury completely shattered. On a bright Tuesday morning, the Grand Arcadia Mall held its annual corporate gala. The grand lobby was decorated with white roses and crystal chandeliers, filled with the city's most powerful politicians, business moguls, and socialites. A sleek, black limousine pulled up to the red carpet. The door was opened by a chauffeur, and a woman stepped out. She wore a stunning emerald green silk gown, her hair swept up in an elegant updo showing off her flawless features. Around her neck was the genuine, brilliant, and breathtaking Heart of the Ocean sapphire necklace, a true masterpiece of art and wealth. Claire Bennett. The crowd parted respectfully as she walked in, flanked by her brother Julian and her father, Arthur Bennett. From the edge of the crowd, outside the glass doors of the mall, a man in a dusty, worn-out suit stood watching the gala. It was Adrian. He had tried to get in to see if he could beg Claire one last time, but the security guards had pushed him back to the street. He watched her through the glass, radiant, beautiful, and completely out of his reach. He realized then with absolute certainty that she had never been his to lose. She belonged to a world he could never even hope to understand. Claire didn't look back. She walked into the grand hall, her eyes fixed on the future, ready to claim her empire.